Has your stylist ever said, we're just going to take off 2 inches, and you walked out and she took off 6? And the part that nobody talks about, did you say anything or did you sit there and watch it happen? Because I was in that chair recently. And what I realized while I was sitting there changed how I think about a lot more than just my hair. So stay with me. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Lisa Freefeather. This channel lives at the intersection of self-awareness, inner patterns, and a deeper architecture of who you are, using practical tools and mystic frameworks together. If that's a conversation you've been looking for, you're in the right place. Make sure you subscribe because there's a lot more coming. Now, if you've been here before, you're going to notice a different look. And I want to name it directly because, and pretend it is not how I operate here. It's been several days since my last video. And in that window, some things shifted. I cut my hair short, not originally as a style choice. I needed to get to a healthy place. And I also have a dermatologist appointment coming up for my scalp. I've been under the weather, part of that stretch, and I thought it was my allergies. So my thumbnails are going to look different. The video is also going to look different. I also got my brows done, nano brows, semi-permanent, and I'm wearing my hair natural. And it's natural curl now instead of my thermally straightened or braided hair, just to get back into a healthy place. And I want to tell you something about all of it, because none of this happened by accident. It happened because I was doing inner work that asked me to get clear, really clear, on what I actually needed and what I actually wanted, where I saw my future was going, where I could close a gap to catapult myself there, not waiting, not thinking about linear steps, what I needed now. And this all unfolded as Venus was moving through Taurus into Gemini. Taurus is the sign of the body, of beauty, of actual values. Gemini's communication. Learning to say the thing out loud. In order to do any of this, I had to learn about myself first. This is Venus, and that's exactly what we're going to get into today. Here's something I want to ask you. Have you ever gone to a salon or a doctor's office or any appointment where someone is assessing your body and had that clinical read of you or your situation land like a character indictment? Like, they weren't just looking at your hair or your skin, they were quietly tallying up your choices, your discipline or lack thereof, your self-care, like the state of your life ends in a report card totaling who you've been as a person. And here's what nobody says out loud about that moment. Sometimes the hair was not neglected. It was preserved. There are seasons in life, grief, instability, survival mode, just trying to hold the floor together, where seeing yourself consistently in the mirror is a form of psychological anchoring because your hair looks familiar, it's presentable, and in that part, it keeps you functional. You manage it enough to maintain the image. It's not because you're in denial, because you need something. You need the one thing that's recognizable while everything is shifting. And then you sit in that chair, and someone who does not know you, your last 2, 3, 5 years, looks at your hair and starts assessing. And it can feel like they're reading your trauma history and finding you lacking. See, that is not a hair problem. That is a Venus problem. And I want to come back to that. But first, I need to tell you what almost happened before I sat in the chair. This was my first appointment with this stylist after a consultation days earlier. First appointments already carry a particular kind of weight, especially when your hair is on the line and you have already done your research and you're hoping that this is the one person who actually gets it. Now, that particular day, I had not slept a full night. I hadn't eaten breakfast. I was already running on less than what I needed and was already carrying more than I should when I was walking into something that required me to be calm, clear, and communicative. And then she was running late. Now, for a regulated, well rested, well fed version of me, late is manageable. Life happens. But that version of me was not in the building that day. What was in the building was someone whose nervous system had already decided that this might not be safe. I could feel myself starting to spiral. I was ready to call the whole thing off. I was calling up another salon that was on my list. I was about to make a reactive decision to keep my project on a timeline. I started to shift into my professional master project manager mode. And then I caught it. It was the moment. Gifting myself with the softness I often give others was the medicine. See, I asked the front desk for an ETA. And then, and this is the part you want to hear, I went and got bubble tea. That sounds small. It was not small. It was me recognizing in real time I needed to give my nervous system something before I blew up an appointment that I actually prepared for. I needed to eat something. I needed a moment that was just for me. I needed to get out of the waiting room, out of that waiting energy, and come back as someone who could actually receive care. And while I waited at the bubble tea place, I made some phone calls. I looked at other options. I weighed the pros and cons, not from panic, from information. And what I realized was that early part of new relationships requires something from you. It requires a little patience while you're figuring out if someone is worth the longer investment. Her staff helped me. They managed the communication. They held space while I pulled myself together. And I came back. I sat in a chair and I was ready. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Even going in prepared, having done my research, having managed my nervous system, having shown up as ready as I could, there was still a moment in that chair where I had to make a choice because I could already assess my own hair. I knew before she said a word that more than 2 inches needed to come off. And as she worked, I could see my mind where the cutting needed to stop. There was a moment where I thought, girl, you need to put them scissors down. And I could see that she was just shaping the last bit of my curls. So I took a deep breath. And that moment is this whole video because here's a mistake most of us make. And I don't say that lightly because I've made it too. We walk into a salon and we hand our sovereignty over. We turn the assessment, the decision making, the authority over our own body to someone whose job is technically skilled, but who doesn't live in our hair, our history, our nervous system, our bodies, our values. And the stylist is not always wrong. Sometimes they see clearly what we've been avoiding. But even if they're right about the damage, they're not automatically right about what you need next. Those are two different conversations. The mistake is not going to the salon. The mistake is not getting partnership before you sit in the chair. Because here's what happens without a real partnership. If you're not maintaining your hair between appointments, if life has gotten in the way, if your ends have been quietly accumulating damage and they're splitting while you're surviving something, then what arrives in a chair is already compromised and more hair has to come off. And if you don't have a relationship with this person, if you not establish what your hair needs and what your boundaries are and what your goals are, then her scissors and her expertise are operating without your values in the room. And that's the root of the scissor happy story. Not malice usually. Maintenance cuts every 3 to 4 months isn't a power move, okay? It's a skill set and knowledge operating in a vacuum where your values should have been present. Now, this is where Venus comes in. And I want to be precise about this because I'm not using Venus loosely. Venus in your birth chart describes your values, what you actually believe you deserve, how you receive care, what feels like love to your nervous system, what your body knows before your mind catches up, if your mind catches up. When Venus was moving through Taurus, which is its home sign, its most grounded expression, the invitation is specifically about your relationship with your own body, your self worth made physical and tangible. Question: Taurus Venus asks is not abstract, it is embodied. It is, what do you actually value, and how are your choices reflecting that? And when Venus moved into Gemini, the invitation shifted to communication, to saying the thing, to naming what you need out loud in a relationship, including a relationship with your stylist. What I realized sitting in that chair is that knowing your Venus is not just about love and romance. It's about every relationship where you're asking someone to be in partnership with your well being, your doctor, your therapist, or the person holding the scissors. If you do not know your values, if you cannot feel them clearly in your body, you will keep handing the decisions over. You will keep walking out with 6 inches when you said 2. Not because you're weak, because no one ever handed you the framework for what knowing yourself in that moment is supposed to feel like. Which is actually why I'm upgrading the Moon Compass app. If you haven't used it yet, the Moon Compass app is my free app that helps you understand your inner landscape through your moon sign. And I've added Venus to it. Yes. Because your Venus sign is one of the fastest ways to recognize your values, your love language, and how you actually wired to receive care. The link is right below this video. It's free. You're going to find Venus plus a bonus planet that I added. I want you to have that information before you need it. Here's what I want to leave you with. Your hair group, maybe it's damaged in some cases because life was happening and maintenance was not the priority. That is not a moral failing. That is a season. And a good stylist who is actually in partnership with you understands that. Their job is not to assess your character through the conditions of your hair. Their job is to work with where you are and move you toward where you want to go. But you have to show up knowing where you want to go. You have to have done enough inside work to know your values, know your body, and know where the scissors need to stop. This is not something you can outsource. No stylist can do that for you. No astrologer either, for that matter. But Venus can show the pattern. The pattern, once you see it, changes everything. Not just in the salon, in every room where someone is asking you to trust them with something that belongs to you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had a salon experience that felt like more than just a haircut? Was there something about it that hit different than expected? I read every comment. I want to know what landed for you. And if this video gave you something real, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. This is how this content reaches the women that it is actually meant for. Subscribe if you haven't already. There's more coming, and I want you to know about it. And the Venus upgrade to the Moon Compass, the link is right below. Know your values before you sit in a chair, in any chair. That's the whole video. Go find your Venus in the Moon Compass, link below. Thank you for spending time with me. Mwah. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.